This week on the Storycraft Society, we are going to be taking a look at Vallejo Diorama FX mud effects. Moi kaikki ja tervetuloa takaisin Storycraft Society Carnivale. My name is Garmin. This is the Storycraft Society. I'm learning Finnish, and this week we are going to be working on some of these Vallejo diorama effects. Now, I have used one of these products before. I have used the European Mud a bunch of times, and I'm just going to be totally honest, it is my absolute favorite, no questions asked, best mud effect that I've ever found. It's got all kinds of little stuff down in it, like little bits of leaves and twigs and things, which just ends up with a very realistic looking finish. But I wanted a couple of extra colors so that I could get some diversity in my ground texture when I'm doing it. Now, the first thing that I'll say just to start this video out is that these are very expensive, at least for what I have done with them. So this is not the type of product that you would want to use if you were covering an entire terrain board. This is actually pretty expensive, even if you were just using it to do all of the banks of the creek effects like I did. This is more of a basing product that I feel really comfortable for the price point using it to do basing on models specifically. Let's start taking a look at these and I'll explain how I'm gonna try each one out. So to start off, let's talk about the product. So it does come sealed, and as you can see, it looks, well, like mud, which is awesome, but it is an acrylic product, so that is a good thing. It is water washable, and when I've gotten it in places where I haven't wanted it to be, it's been pretty easy to get rid of, just like acrylic craft paint. That the European mud is kind of this yellowy brown. The Russian mud is this like blackish brown. Oh gosh. And then the brown mud is like this reddy kind of brown. It actually almost has like a clay color to it, which is cool. But what I did next was I made up a bunch of these little black pieces. They're just pieces of dowel rod that are cut up and I painted black. I didn't want to waste bases on this particular test, and this seemed like a good way to do that without wasting, you know, plastic bases that I'd end up having to buy. So I had the dowel rod sitting around, and that's what we're gonna do. The next thing is, what are the tests? The tests are going to be, we're gonna be trying the European mud, the Russian mud, and the brown mud. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a thin version of each, a medium application of each, and then a big thicky boy version of each, where we can see how much it piles up and gains volume if you put a lot of it on. You know, does it dry down or not? But that's the test. These are the products. Let's do it. Before I show you what the results of this were, here's just a quick color comparison between the three. This is the European mud in the center. It's this like yellowy color. Here is the brown mud, which is the reddy color. And then, yeah, the Russian mud is almost black. So yeah, this is a nice little start to see the difference in color. For the thin application of each, they all basically looked the same. They have this really nice variety of textures inside of the dirt paste. I can't talk highly enough about this product because of the variety of textures that it gives you, and it's even more evident in this very thin application of it. The Russian mud definitely appears to be the thinnest of the three, even in the thin application. That will kind of stay consistent the rest of the way up, but for the most part, all three of these look and finish in the thin application basically the same way. The medium application is where I started to notice a body difference. For both the European and brown muds, they both finished about the same way. They did hold themselves up in certain places and dried down in other places, but it's definitely noticeably thicker than the thin application. With the Russian mud, it just seemed to dry down more and more consistently over the whole thing. So there were less peaks and valleys, and it gave me a more flat look. However, I will say inside of this test, it definitely still has more body in the medium application than it did in the thin application. And maybe even more important to mention is in the medium application, I got less texture from the Russian mud than the thin application, where I saw all of the variety of textures in the thin piece. The thick application is another place that these super shine for me, because if you look at the European and brown muds, I actually almost got a little hill out of just one application of this stuff. It's not something that you have to do 3 or 4 or 5 applications of it to build that ground area up. You can just do it in one coat. Just obviously takes longer to dry when you do that. I'm actually not even sure with these whether they are dried down underneath, so it might even take another day or 2 of drying before it would be solid enough that you could like try to drill into it or like put a post down into those areas. The Russian mud definitely kept consistent up into this area. It flattened a lot compared to the other two, and it also again lost a lot of its texture compared to the other two in the thicker application. The difference between the medium application and the thick application of the Russian mud certainly seems to be similar, I guess, although I guess there is a little bit more body when it comes to the thicker application. But compared to the European mud and the brown mud, definitely the Russian mud dried down more. I know I already touched on this, but now that the pieces are all the way dry, I'm gonna talk a little bit about the color. Definitely when it dries, the European mud is like a yellowy kind of a brown. For most dirt applications, the European mud definitely feels color-wise like it is the best choice. It's gonna do the most stuff looking like real dirt, at least in my head, what I think real dirt looks like. The Russian mud, color-wise, is almost black. I think that there's definitely some stuff that you could do to maybe try and bring it up a little bit by like dry brushing color onto the top or something like that. But in its natural state, it looks like really dark earth. The final one is brown mud, and this is the most interesting one because it's brown, so it looks the most like stereotypical dirt. Like, I think if you were gonna put all of these out in front of someone, they would probably pick the brown mud as the one. But for me, I feel like it looks more like clay and red earth than it does like just regular dirt. But with that said, all 3 of these muds could exist in a collection because they do not do the same thing as the other ones do. They are drastically different colors. With all ground textures, a variety of colors and different consistencies is definitely what makes it look the most natural. So this is one thing where all of these products could be used with one another, and I think that that could actually make a very convincing ground texture. But also you could do things to these to make them even better than they are here. Things like dry brushing another color on top or using washes to make the darker areas darker, that sort of thing. So hopefully this video was useful to you. I definitely love all of these products. I am super happy that I bought all of them. This is definitely not a sponsored video. These are just my favorite mud pastes that I've used, and I feel confident in saying that I haven't found any products like these on the market that I like more. If there's any that I should try out, definitely leave them down in the comments below. Let me know what your favorites are, and I would love to compare them to these. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, definitely do all of the YouTube stuff, like subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, like this video. The #1 way that you can help out any small YouTube channel, including this one, is to share their videos with a friend that you think would enjoy it. So if you have a friend who would like to see a comparison of different mud pastes on bases for miniatures or diorama builders, anything like that, share this video with them. I would appreciate it more than you realize. It takes like 10 seconds of your day, and it just helps the channel so much. But that's it. So until next week, I'll be seeing you.